substance in this, because already ODM is saying that this is rigging. ODM claims that a big election rigging syndicate has been put in place already.
I think for me, key things, and it's very important for us to understand that IEBC is an independent institution which is capable of making independent decisions, and that is why it's very clear. If you look at the Chapter 15 commissions, it's very clear that they should not be controlled by any individual or government or whichever side of the divide. So whatever decisions they make, they ought to be independent, and clearly even the opposition should not be able to determine the decisions they are supposed to make. However, there are key things. One is that I've actually looked at the new law that has very tight timelines as regards purchase of technology, which says you have to purchase that 8 months before elections. We are now barely a month to that particular deadline. If you look at again what the law provides for vis-a-vis the Public Procurement Act, again you see clearly there is a disconnect, and the Public Procurement Act is very clear that where another law goes against the Public Procurement Act as regards procurement, then the Public Procurement Act takes an upper hand. So it's a very dicey situation where we are. We have commissioners who have given notice in terms of resignation. We are yet to recruit new commissioners. So again, the biggest question is that what is a commission? Is it the secretariat? Is it the commissioners? Or is it both? ODM are arguing that first and foremost, making a decision now to print ballot papers, it's quite early. And I think I would want to agree with them, because why are we in a hurry to procure, yet the new commissioners are not there? The commission might have sense when they talk about the procurement of other election material, including technology, because of the timelines that have been provided for by the new law. But the hurry in picking a printer now, 9 months to election, I think it is quite early. So whatever issues that are being raised by the opposition, you can see there is a lot of sense. So I would urge the commission, because there is no hurry, and I saw the CEO mentioning that they have not awarded the contract yet. They are saying that they just evaluated, and that particular company emerged victorious in terms of their technical capability. So I think it is important to try and involve as many stakeholders as you can.
But as you said, IEBC Chief Executive Ezra Chiloba, this is a secretariat. He has insisted that the deal is clean and that had been awarded through a normal framework contract. But he says that they've only sought for a supplier through a framework contract. They are yet to place an order for a single ballot paper. No one should be worried about this. But Bwana Yusuf Hassan, we seem to be having a challenge when it comes to the IEBC, that this independent commission that's supposed to be making its own decisions, as Brian Weke says, totally independent of either side of the political divide. Now, it looks like it's unable to do so without the involvement of either side. Jubilee wants to have a say in what they do. ODM wants to have a say in everything that IEBC is doing. Is that really the way to go?
No, absolutely not. I think it is completely wrong for any political party, be it the ruling party or the opposition party, to interfere and try to influence the work of an independent constitutional body like the IEBC. Already the opposition has done that quite a number of times, trying to discredit this national institution in the eyes of the Kenyan public, which is a very dangerous thing, because we need to enforce, energize, legitimize our national institutions for them to be able to execute their constitutional responsibilities. And the engine of the IEBC is the secretariat, the accounting officer, the decision-making process on issues of contracts, tendering. And this body works under laws that we have passed in Parliament, which includes the opposition. And those these legislations are very clear about the timeline. Therefore, the Secretariat is working to meet those timelines that have been locked in. It has been locked into by the legislations that we have passed at Parliament, of which the opposition ODM is a member. Now, to come around and say you shouldn't be doing your job now, it is too early to do your job, is micromanaging the affairs of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And I think this is wrong. We shouldn't be going that way.
Yes, but of course, this story quotes ODM, but of course, even last week we saw Code Management Team, which includes Wiper and Ford Kenya, talking about the same issue. Now we're seeing that they're demanding for a tendering process to be halted. Is that the way to go? Demand that a tendering process be halted? Are there laws that you can follow if you feel that this independent commission has done something wrong, that you go and actually pursue justice in a different manner, instead of just saying demanding that process hold it now because you've said so?
Yeah, you know, elections is a big deal for us, and why it's such a big deal for us, because we know if they're not done properly, you can have what happened in 2007, 2008. Yeah, post-election violence. Our economy 10 years later has never recovered from post-election violence. That's how serious this is. People's lives were lost. As a result, now we want to pull out of the ICC because of that, and so on and so forth. So it has very wide-reaching consequences if you don't do an election properly. Now, I believe personally in institutions, and I believe even more in independent institutions. But you have to look at the sword both ways. You have an independent institution chairman, Isaac Hassan, who, when he was the chairman of IEBC, went and publicly said Raila Odinga is a perennial loser and can never win an election. Now, Raila Odinga is a leading contender for president in 2017. Now, how do you let an independent commission go by and say nothing because they're independent, while their chairman has already said 5 years even before the election that you're not going to win? So you already, that takes the independence away, and you know they're working for somebody else. And that's where the suspicion comes in. Now, there's two things that stick out here. One is a commission can only be a commission when it has commissioners. IEBC has no commissioners. Then you're rushing to give tenders on printing. It doesn't take 9 months to print stuff. So you're going through a hurry up and wait process. So it's not really micromanaging like my friend Yusuf Hassan is saying. It's about looking at, hey, are these guys up to something that can plunge our country again into chaos? So it's not about Wiper or ODM or CORD. It's about 42 million Kenyans who depend on the stability of this country. And what the opposition is doing is they're just taking leadership and preempting any sort of thing that can trigger a violence because of a bad election. Now, these timelines, I agree, and when you're caught with timelines, and that's why some people are asked before you're given a job, can you work under pressure? You have to be innovative. Necessity is the mother of invention. So, for example, if there are very strict timelines on procurement, let's say maybe with the technology, you can say instead of buying the BVR kits, instead of going to buy and test these things, why don't you either one, borrow from a country like Ghana that has proven, or India that has proven to use these things properly, or two, why don't you lease them? Yeah, it serves the same purpose, because the purpose is to register people and to enable them to vote. So there's more innovative ways. So for somebody to insist that they're going to go and do something that's not needed now, and they're doing it in the window where there are no commissioners, I mean, you'd smell a rat.
But surely,
you'd smell a rat.
Surely there has to be a different way of handling these matters. When you feel that the IEBC or any other independent commission is not working the way it should, surely, is it up to an opposition party or the ruling coalition to come out and say, okay, now we are demanding this? Isn't there a better way of handling these independent commissions, including the IEBC?
Listening to where we are coming from with this, we are speaking one thing and acting something totally different from what just Brian said and the Deputy Governor. That we accept that this is an independent body, constitutional, that is not controlled by either of the parties that are in politics, and it has to be remain independent like that. We also agree that, of course, the commissioners are on their way out, and that new ones are coming in. But don't we have a functional office which has a CEO who is in charge of day-to-day operations of the whole organization. And secondly, I like it when I like it, but let's say in quotes, when they say that we are hurrying in printing the ballot papers. Yet we accept that this whole concept is not about copy and paste. It's not about a printer in the office where you just go the day before, you just press a button and you get your ballot paper. It's a process. It's a complicated thing that has got technology. It has a bit of planning. It has logistics and all that. And looking at where we are and accepting the fact that we have guidelines into our timelines on where we should be at every one time towards election, and learning from our last general election where the BVR kit did not work because some of them were brought in just a month or two to elections. There was no time for training and all that. We cannot go that route again. We should give them time to be able to plan, to be able to identify who can be in charge of printing these ballot papers. The idea is to have a process that's credible. It's not about where the papers were printed. They can be printed in the moon, or they can be printed anywhere else in the world. Last time we had them printed in Britain, and that is where we got the chicken gate. It doesn't matter if they were printed in Kenya, leave alone Dubai. The idea is the whole process of elections will be credible, putting the printing of the ballot papers aside. And I want to take you back to what happened when we started removing the commissioners. This whole process of rocking the boat of a very independent body was brought in by the court coalition. With their protest, their sitting, until we removed the commissioners. The president came in, and of course the parliament came in, and now we are on the verge of recruiting new commissioners who are going to be completely independent, with an agreement with even the court coalition in how it's going to be done. Now, if we go on every time there's a change or there's progress in this process, and they have to doubt every stage, then we'll end up having a process whereby we will never have elections. Instead, we might have to just say, let the regime that is there continue, or pick the leaders.
Yes, you wanted to say something,
yes.
But I also have a question for you. Do you think ODM in this case is just crying wolf?
Now, key things, Fred. If you look at the last election, the credibility of the commission was at around 87%. So Kenyans had so much faith in the election management body, and they believed that whatever they would do, the outcome of the election would be free and fair, would be credible. Now, one of the key jobs of a commission is to manage perceptions. Now, when you start doing things that would start weighing down the credibility of the process, then there is a problem. As we speak, the last poll that was done, the commission only posted 35%. So as we speak, we're in the process of rebuilding confidence of the commission. Now, things like this do not help the process. When you hear my brother, and I agree with a lot of what he has said, my brother Honorable Mudomi, when you hear him say that ballot papers can be printed in the moon, that's a very dangerous wording.
Because where they're printed, whether in the moon or
because one of the key things is to ensure that you protect that particular system. Because access to ballot papers, or even a mere perception that there is somebody who can access to ballot papers, in itself dents the credibility of the commission. And by the way, the commission is independent. They're supposed to make independent decisions, but they're supposed to consult their stakeholders. And who are their stakeholders? The Jubilees and the CORDs, political parties, civil society organizations. So we are looking at a process where whatever decision you make is independent, but again has to be seen, has to be perceived to be independent. Now already, and I agree with Honorable Mudomi when he says it is a process in terms of printing ballot paper. It is not an activity. It is a clear process. And that's the reason why you have to, for now, because the perception with the current commissioners is that they are pro certain side. Then there is wisdom in waiting for another month for us to get new commissioners. Then we start building the confidence of the public.
I'm surprised by Brian saying, a lawyer saying that we can postpone, we can disregard our laws. There is timeline that are constitutionally and legislatively binding on the IEBC on this date, and the IEBC cannot sit and wait for these timelines to pass for them to say, oh well, we're waiting for something to happen. The constitutional process in which they are supposed to work.
Is there a timeline for printing ballot papers?
There is a timeline for the date, the 8th of December. They must have.
No. Is there a timeline for printing ballots? There is none.
But that is just a part of a bigger. You have just picked. You're picking from a ball.
But that's what we're debating. We're debating that particular issue, the printing of the ballot papers.
Let's get to the bottom of this issue. The problem CORD has with IEBC is the fact that CORD has lost elections. CORD is going to lose the next election. So it is looking for a reason. It is looking for a scapegoat, and IEBC is the scapegoat. It doesn't accept the fact that it has lost the elections because it did not get votes from the Kenyan public, yes.
Okay.
And therefore, IEBC has become a body that must be bashed and discredited in the eyes of the supporters of ODM. That is the only reason. Many other institutions are bashed by the opposition. For example, the Kenyan Defence Force is now been bashed. The commander of the Kenyan Defence Force in the UN operations in Sudan was removed. When you decapitate the head of a fighting force, what morale, what integrity would they have to stay in that country? You know, these are some of the things that are quite surprising, in the sense that the IEBC argument is not about IEBC. The IEBC argument is about the elections that are coming and the fear that CORD is facing.
Yes. Do you agree that ODM could be crying wolf, or the opposition could be crying wolf?
I think I don't, and I'm very worried that my friend Mheshimiwa Yusuf has politicized it and even said that we are doing it because we lose the next election. I mean, Mheshimiwa, you're a member of parliament and you represent people, yeah, and you're doubting the 65% of your constituents that have said they don't have faith in IEBC. That's a very dangerous thing to do, because you're even doubting the people that you represent. It's not Raila Odinga or ODM or anything, but 35% of Kenyans have said they have confidence, which means 65% don't. And they don't because of issues like this. There's no timeline for the printing of ballot papers. Probably in another 2 weeks or so, there'll be commissioners. You can't have a commission without commissioners. Now, the CEO is running to do something that he doesn't have to do now before commissioners are sworn in, and you can't politicize that because it's fact. Yeah, so let's begin to look at things objectively on the way things are going. I don't think ODM is crying wolf. I think ODM is raising a point now, because if anything happens in a year or so, what Jubilee or the court or anybody else is going to ask is, if you knew or you thought there was a problem, why didn't you raise it a year ago? Okay. That's what ODM is doing. They're raising it now to prevent a post-election violence, and I think they should be commended.
But Fred, now,
Fred,
briefly, yes. Briefly.
Let's just demystify this whole thing about printing, because we have gotten this perception that the papers are going to be printed in the next few days. What has happened is that there has been an identification of the body, or the company that is going to carry out the role of this process. You do agree with me that to date, up to this time, we don't know who are going to be the candidates, and therefore they cannot be having any printing. The nominations are going to be maybe 2 months just to elections. That's the only time we can be able to put an image, put a photo and all that. But you don't just wake up that morning and say, who is going to do this job? Let's give it to so and so. It's preparation and they're in place. So let's not give Kenya the impression that papers being imprinted, because they listen to us and they make decisions based on that. Then we go back and say that they do not have faith. It is because of what we have said, because they listen to that.
Okay, and we hold that thought. We'll continue.